Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Class of 1970 50-Year Reunion Photo Retrospective entitled Marist College, Class of 1970, 5 Decades in the Making, 1966 to 1970 and Beyond. I'm Amy Woods, a graduate of the Class of 1997 and the Executive Director of Alumni Relations. I'm joined today by my colleague, Amanda Benton, a graduate from the Class of 2011 who works with me in the Alumni Relations Office. During and after this presentation, we would love for you to share your comments and memories in the comment section below on this page. This video presentation will remain on the Marist Alumni YouTube channel. This way, if you would like to go back and view the entire presentation or pause at particular parts to get a better look, you can easily do so. The three hosts joining us today of today's presentation are Joan Gasparovic Gambeski, brother Sean Sammon, and Bill Dourdis. Joan is a graduate of the class of 1983. She is Director of Gift and Legacy Planning and also serves as a liaison to the 50th reunion class for the Office of College Advancement. She returned to Marist in 2017 after having previously served as Marist Annual Fund Director from 1984 to 1988, and also served 7 years on the Alumni Association Executive Board. Also joining us are two members of the class of 1970, each with a different perspective of their time at Marist. Brother Sean Sammon is currently Marist Scholar in Residence. He is a licensed clinical psychologist, is Director of Novices of the Marist Brothers, and is former Superior General of the Marist Brothers. He is also an author and will receive the National Religious Vocation Conference Outstanding Recognition Award later this month. Bill Dourdis retired from teaching in the Wappinger Center School District, where he taught for 33 years, and while doing so, mentored 29 Marist student teachers. While at Marist, Bill played football all 4 years, and even came back as an alumnus to serve as offensive back coach for 4 years. He is also a charter member of the Marist Football Mentoring Program. He served as a 1970 class agent and as a Marist Fund Phonathon volunteer. Bill has been an extremely dedicated Marist volunteer for all of the 50 years he's been an alumnus and has also worked closely with the Alumni and Advancement Office over the years. And what you're about to see is proof of that. Bill spent countless hours researching and collecting the images and statistics you will see today. To start things off, I'd like to welcome Brother Sean Sammon.
Thanks, Amy. And I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Murray. In many ways, Dennis Murray represents the spirit of Marist College. He has guided this institution as it's grown from a small regional school into what it is today, a university known nationally and internationally, graduating young men and women full of hope about changing our world. Dennis came to the college in 1979, a young man from California with a dream and the wherewithal to bring that dream to life. He has overseen not only the transformation of the campus, but also the growth of a diverse faculty and the development of many new academic programs. And he has accomplished all of these tasks while still remaining true to the founding heritage of the college, rooted in the Marist Brothers' approach to education. You might ask, what is it about Dennis Murray that sets him apart from many other leaders in higher education? The answer is quite simple. He is not only an accomplished scholar who helps his fellow administrators and the college faculty to address the present and envision the future, he also loves the students of Marist College. Whether you find him taking a selfie with a freshman or inquiring about the health of the father of a junior, the students at Marist know quite clearly that he cares not only about the fact that they'll get a first-class education, he also cares about each of them. It's a pleasure to introduce Dr. Dennis Murray, President of Marist College.
Hi, I'm Dennis Murray, and I'm speaking to you from the Greystone building on the Marist campus. For those of you who don't know the building's history, Greystone is a carriage house built in the 1860s on what then was the Beck Estate. The estate was later purchased by the Marist Brothers in 1908 to be used as their novitiate. In the 1860s, horses were kept on the first floor, carriages on the second floor, and the third floor, where my office is located, was a hayloft. I like to tell my colleagues in American higher education that I think I'm the only college or university president with a hayloft for an office, but it's a beautiful space with great views of the Hudson River. And as some of you might remember, Greystone also served as Marist's only library for many years. It also became the inspiration for the college's architectural palette of gray stone and red brick, which you see in so many of our buildings today. I'm here today to send out a special greeting to Marist's class of 1970. Congratulations on your 50th reunion. This class of one of Marist's finest. Several members have served on our board of trustees. Others have assumed leadership positions in our alumni organization, and several have established scholarships to allow young people to have the benefit of a Marist education. We're grateful to all the dedicated members of Team 70 for the work they've done to plan for your 50th reunion and to raise money for the class of 1970 endowed scholarship. We're disappointed we couldn't host you on campus for homecoming and reunion weekend, but that doesn't diminish the significance of this milestone, the bonds of friendship you've formed, or our gratitude for your support of Marist over the years. So thanks again for your support of your alma mater and for keeping your connection to Marist so strong. We hope you and your families are staying safe, and we look forward to the day when we can welcome you back to the Marist campus. Congratulations again on your 50th reunion.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, Amy, and Sean for that lovely introduction to this program. We are so happy to share this special presentation with our 50th reunion celebrants, the class of 1970, and our special guests. Planning for the 50th began over a year ago. 12 classmates began reaching out and sharing their enthusiasm. While we needed to postpone the on-campus gathering this fall, many members of the class have already begun connecting with one another by phone, email, Facebook, and yes, Zoom, with some getting back in touch for the first time in 50 years. Marist is deeply grateful to Team 70, the superstar planning group for the class of 1970's 50th reunion. Thank you so very much, Bill Dourdis, Marty Jives, Larry Kazmaier, Brother John Klein, Bill Lieber, Frank Leontonio, Jim McGlumphy, Anthony Miserandino, Brother Sean Sammon, Doug Stewart, Ed Walzer, and Ed Zukowski. As Amy said, Bill, just outstanding, all of the work that you've done on this project. And thank you for saying yes to leading this photo retrospective project for your class. We can't thank you enough for all of the hours you have given to prepare and for sharing your passion for Marist and its history with us. We also want to thank the creative director of the class of 1968's photo retrospective, Joe Walsh, for sharing his expertise and passion as well. And we recognize John Forbes from the class of 1968, who meticulously digitized and cataloged more than 250 photos and articles about Marist College and shared them with us, along with many stories, with much more to come. We thank all who have shared images and memories for this presentation, and you can see all of the contributors here. We thank you very, very much for your valuable contributions. And we would be remiss if we did not give a thunderous round of applause to the 1970 Reynard yearbook staff. They did an outstanding job assembling your treasure trove of memories with your yearbook, and it served as a great resource in putting this program together. So we thank all of them as well. And so we did have a small army of folks working on this, and we had just a very dedicated and talented production team, and we thank all of them for their contributions over these past many months in pulling this together.
word about Marist presidents. Marist has always had a history of young presidents. Brother Paul Ambrose, its first leader, was but 30 years old when he took up the task of transforming the Marist Normal Training School into Marian College. Richard Foy was 28 when he stepped in as college president. At the time, he was the youngest college president in the United States. Dennis Murray was in his early 30s when he was appointed president of what was now known as Marist College. Each of these leaders led the college during a critical period in its development. While Paul was president for 12 years and Linus for 21, Dennis holds the record with 39 years of service. Now I turn it over to Joan.
Thank you, Sean. So our Marist presidents have always focused the spotlight on our students and alumni. And back in 1988, President Murray invited Tom Connors from the class of 1970 to represent Marist alumni and join us in Los Angeles in accepting a national award from the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education. And later that week, we visited with Pete Nesteroke from the class of 66 and other alumni in the San Francisco area. So it's always great visiting with their alumni throughout the country.
Today's Marist College is a very different school than the one that we might remember. It now offers 47 bachelor degree programs, 11 masters, and 1 doctoral program. The student body has also grown in size to more than 6,000 graduate and undergraduates. 58% are women, 42% men. The faculty numbers almost 600 full-time and adjunct. Clubs and intercollegial varsity sport teams far outnumber what we had in our day. The next 11 slides will provide a quick bird's eye view of the campus today. It's been transformed during the last half century and shows the influence of architects such as the world-renowned Robert A.M. Stern and his associates. The Murray Student Center is at the heart of the campus, along with its rotunda. Here you'll find the admissions office, student services, as well as the bookstore, the dining hall, and the mid-rise residence hall. The Hancock Center is home to the computer science and math departments, as well as the investment center, the Marist Pole, and the international programs. The old parking lot outside of Champaign now serves as something of a beach for students once the spring weather sets in. The Canavino Library towers over this site. The Student Center, dedicated to Dennis and Marilyn Murray, also houses the Fusco Music Center and Symphonic Hall. Though music is not yet a major here at Marist, interest in this area runs high among students. The hallway that once connected the Champaign dorm with the theater now includes the dining room, several large multi-purpose conference halls, and a walkway into the rotunda. The gym in Marion has been replaced by the James J. McCann Center and the McCann Arena. Housed in this new building are not only 2 gyms, but also an elevated running track, a turf field for practice indoors, a yoga and dance studio, a training and conditioning center, as well as gift and snack shops. The McCann Center also features an ESPN teaching control room used by students in the sports communication program. If you have a chance to walk to the northernmost part of the campus, you'll come across Gartland Commons with its 4 large residence halls. The buildings making up the Commons are named after Tom and Mary Ward, Nancy and John O'Shea, Pat Laval and family, and Michael and Janine McCormick. The buildings were designed by Robert Stern and Associates. We all remember Frank's in Western Printing, located across Route 9. Should you walk over there today, you'll discover the East Campus of Marist College. A pedestrian walkway constructed under Route 9 links the 2 campuses. Once through the walkway, you'll see the Steelworks building on your right. It houses fashion design and marketing, the art and sculpture studios, and the art gallery. If you look to the left when emerging from the walkway, you'll see the Allied Health and Science Building. It houses the School of Science, as well as the Physician's Assistance Program and the doctoral program in physical therapy. The reach of Marist College also extends across the Hudson River today, where the Colonel Oliver Hazard Payne Mansion is located. Formerly part of the novitiate formation program for the Marist Brothers, the building and grounds were restored by Mr. Raymond A. Rich, who upon his death willed the property to the college. The mansion, built in 1911, houses the Raymond A. Rich Leadership Institute at Marist College. Marist also has a campus abroad, located in Florence, Italy. It accommodates many of the Marist students who go abroad to study each year. Other abroad students go to France, Spain, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and a host of other countries. Finally, commencement takes place today on the green in back of the library, overlooking the Hudson River. In recent years, commencement speakers have included men and women from the worlds of politics, entertainment, journalism, religion, education, and a number of other fields. Mr. Rogers, of course, was the speaker just 2 years before he died. Now let me hand the narration over to Bill Dourdis, who will remind us about then and now.
27 years ago, we were able to we learned a lot from a couple of different masked men. You see the Lone Ranger on the left, and in this year of the COVID, you have the masked men on the right. The theme of this whole section is going to be that we were the pioneers of many of the programs and sports. We left footprints on Marist, and Marist certainly left a footprint on us in terms of our degrees, our careers, and our values. We had Paul Harvey on the radio and the rest of the story, and now the technology has evolved into multiple news sources as things progressed. We got James T. Kirk from the Starship Enterprise on the left from the TV, and in the classroom we had Professor Daniel Kirk. Everybody remembers Aussible from Ed Psych, and that was a great time. Mike Ortega, class of 70, opened up a two-car garage and turned it into a fitness center. You can see in the Nautilus in the lower left-hand corner there. And now he has a 4-story building directly across the street from the south end of the campus. Back in the day, it was called Mike's Tavern. It's now River Station. I titled this slide Blood, Sweat, and Beers. The River Station was at the foot of Main Street, just down the street from the Brown Derby. You all know the Brown Derby, remember that? Right? Okay.
I got engaged there.
I found a postcard. This is the Fiat building, which was a motor factory that eventually became Western Printing, which was the largest publishing business in the area. And now that's been converted to Home Depot. And that's pretty big too. The crew team used to row underneath the railroad bridge. Now you've got to come over and see what they've turned it into. Walkway over the Hudson. It's 220 feet high. It's a mile long, and bring your camera. The views are spectacular. This is a blast from the past too. Steve was in my English class. We carpooled together when we were student teaching, and 50 years later, his son graduates. He tried to keep it in the family, and that's what we all do here too.
And actually, you know, there were so many similarities as we've been discussing between the class of 70 and 2020. You know, both classes ended the year much differently than they anticipated, right? There were tumultuous times for our country, and there were fears, you know, among families for their well-being and what have you. Then it was the Vietnam War, and today we're living with a pandemic. So, but I have to share, you know, the message from the class of 70 to 2020 is that you graduated with your Marist experience, mentors and friends that will be with you forever. And like us, the class of 70, you too will be celebrating future reunions with your friends and classmates in the years to come.
And this slide here is a checkup from the neck up to prevent hardening of the attitudes. Just look at the prices of some of the things back in the day and think about your shopping list. As we go through these, I'm going to emphasize that headlines are very important. So I look at the left, and there are lots of things to remember and never to forget on these slides and throughout some of this presentation. The question was the drinking age, 18 or 21, and back and forth on all of that. That's been going on for quite a few years. Vietnam vets came back on the GI Bill to get an education. And when I started playing football, a lot of the people on the team were Vietnam vets. Sean, tell them about what was going on back then.
As Joan said so well, the years we spent here were not unlike the present time in many ways. They were marked by political, social, religious, and racial unrest. Assassinations, violence during the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago, Woodstock, the sexual revolution, a lottery for the draft were all part of our experience. A war was waging in Vietnam and Cambodia. Changes initiated by Vatican II led to divisions in the Catholic Church. Marist students were not immune to all that was unfolding in our world. Some served in the armed services, others protested the war. Some found religion to be a consolation, others felt quite alienated from institutional churches. Some questioned the social mores of the day, others did not. It was a time of controversy, of debate, and for a number of our classmates, of extraordinary sacrifice.
Martin Luther King spoke, or they had a dedication there. And that was at Riverview Field, which was our home field for football. And we had to carpool to our own football games the first 2 years because of the football field. And we'll talk about that later. This was also a field of dreams for us, as well as for the late Dr. Martin Luther King. Now I'm going to just continue for about one more slide here on the Marist Brothers, and put these side by side. That this was a famous ad that appeared in the Time magazine, and you can remember, guys, that Marist Brothers were in their collars and robes in the classroom, and after that, they had another thing to do. Back in the day, when I was in teacher ed, it was what was taught and what was caught. And you had the brothers in the classroom, and then they're out there bare-chested, sweating, with tool belts on, building the campus. So take it away from there, Sean.
Good, thanks, Bill. Our Lady Seat of Wisdom Chapel, as Bill mentioned, was built by the brothers. It was really the center of the campus at that time. It was built in the early 1950s, and it was dedicated by Francis Spellman, who was the Cardinal of New York in 1955. Looking back on all those days of construction, however, it's a bit unnerving to realize that this next slide pretty much captures the quality of the construction equipment used to build Donnelly and the chapel. So many things were very informal in those days. Here we have Linus Foy Nalastanri and the architect of the moment reviewing the plans for Champagne Hall. The original Marion building housed not only the gym, but also the print shop, the laundry, and Mrs. Fisher's art studio.
And that's Anthony Miserandino, class of 70, in the print shop photo, assisting Brother Tarsius, as we learned in an earlier review of these prints. So lots of work done there.
Thanks, Joan. And some of us may also remember that there were the remnants of a farm on the northern part of the campus. The early Marist brothers who came to the US from France brought with them many customs from their homeland, one of which was the raising of bees and the production of honey. Marist College, during a moment in time, was the home of the Marist brothers' apiaries. The farm, by the way, was closed by Richard Foy in the early 1960s, at a time when Marist was working to expand its student body and attract applicants from a wider geographical area. A fire occurred on the farm. Several pigs, unfortunately, died in the blaze, causing the Poughkeepsie Journal to print this headline the following morning: "Pigs perish in fire at Marist College." Linus closed the farm the next day. During the 1950s, the vast majority of the students of Marist College were young men in formation to be Marist brothers. Here we have an image of one class taking final exams in the gym. Desks are lined up straight, everything appears in order. If you look to the far left, first desk, you'll see Larry Sullivan, who was a student brother at that time. Many of the student brothers were also quite involved in service programs in the greater Poughkeepsie area. Today, this tradition of service to the community continues through programs organized by campus ministry. Though the Marist brothers moved their formation program away from Marist College in 1970, the college welcomed the brothers' novitiate back to campus in 2017. Located in the Kirk residence, a community made up of several brothers has once again taken up the work of forming young men for the brotherhood. Now we'll take a look at several symbols associated with the college. The first of these is the Marist seal. The Marist seal is a familiar image found throughout the campus. There are features of it, however, that merit explanation. To begin with, the Marist M found in the middle of the seal isn't exactly an M. Rather, it is made up of these two letters, A and M. And if you look closely at the center of the M, you can see the A there imposed on it. These two initials stand for Ave Maria, or Hail Mary. By the way, this AM design is used worldwide in schools overseen by the Marist brothers. The date 1929 marks the foundation of the Marist Normal Training School, the precursor of the college. Finally, the Latin phrase orare et laborare refers to the Catholic monastic tradition of working and praying. The Red Fox. Students at Marist College today proudly call themselves Red Foxes. You'll also note that a red fox appears on the south gate of the college. The athletic department has a red fox's face emblazoned on uniforms and sports memorabilia. What's the origin of this symbol and how is it connected with Marist? Well, in 1961, Marist athletic director, Brother William Murphy, was in search of a symbol for the college's first varsity basketball team. While looking through a sports magazine with a red fox on the cover, he got the idea that this symbol would be suitable for the college. After all, the red fox is indigenous to the Hudson Valley. It symbolizes curiosity and wisdom, playfulness and charm, agility and opportunity. Ever since, the red fox or rain yard has been the symbol of Marist College.
And we've been bitten by the Marist bug, because if you remember, I was there, at the Cornell Boathouse upstairs where Jack Eberth started the football mentoring program, Jack McDonald from the class of 71 had told a story about, he had explained to his daughter and a whole lot of other people that he's talked to since, that Marist isn't a 4-year deal. Marist is a lifetime experience.
Thanks, Bill. The next item is the Marist coat of arms, which may not be familiar to a number of people. You'll see on either side of the Marist coat of arms, you have the official Marist mascot, the red fox. The red and white colors that mark the college have their origin in the coloration of the fox. In the left quadrant of the shield, you will find the traditional Marist bell, originally used to call the brothers to prayer. The Mohegan figure seen in the right-hand quadrant of the shield is taken from the seal of the town of Poughkeepsie. By the way, the Mohegan word for Poughkeepsie means a safe, pleasant harbor. The lower half of the seal represents the liberal arts. The nucleus of the atom stands for the sciences, while the open book and crossed quills represents the humanities. Atop the shield is the official Marist Brothers emblem. At the bottom is a scroll with the Latin words cum optimus litigare, meaning to strive alongside the best. And finally, the Marist ring. The original Marist ring is rather unique in style and design. Its face includes an octagon cut stone, the word Marist College, and the date when New York State granted the college a full charter, 1946. The sides of many of the rings include an image of the red fox, as well as the chapel at Marist. At first, there were rings solely for men. As the college began to admit women to both the day and evening divisions, a second ring was developed. Now I'll turn the narration over to Bill once again, who'll guide us through a tour of the campus as we might remember it. He'll then say a word about academics as well as athletics and student life here at Marist during the late 1960s.
There you see Donnelly in the lower center, and the football field on the left back in 1966, when the football players had to lift up their shirts and fill them with rocks as they went across there, because that's the only place that we could practice on campus. Now, take the time to look and view this again to gain a better context of where things are. We took a Google map and we labeled everything as best we could. This was from a picture in 1975, and this slide alone will bring back a whole lot of memories. Here's a pretty postcard. If you notice, Marist isn't about to fall into the river anytime soon. So just keep a grasp of where everything is, compare that to the slide above, and we'll just move on from there. Okay, here's the grotto. If you're on the football field looking toward the river, upper left-hand corner would be where Sheehan is, and the lower left would be where the bee house was. Sean mentioned all of that stuff with the Marist Brothers from before. The bee house isn't there any longer. Adrian Hall is where we did phonathons back in the early days. I'm not going to make too many comments about the Volkswagen in the lobby on the right, but if you know any answers to how and why, put them on the chat. And
I just want to say, Bill, that Adrian was where I first met you in 1984, when we used to have all of those phonathons, and Adrian was also the first home of the Marist poll. But we were very fortunate in that we didn't just host phonathons on campus, but off campus as well. And Ted Brosnan from your class, and Tim Keneally from the class of '69, and even Linus Foy would all invite us to their offices to conduct phonathons for the college. So really fun times and great memories, and some really great work done for Marist.
Right. Marion Hall is where the Brothers residence was. We can't see any brothers, we can't see inside there, but just check out the cars. And you'll be doing that throughout some of these other slides as well. Center point of the college was Donnelly Hall. The original veranda over in the lower right has now been enclosed to get more classroom space and more office space, but that was the original design back then. On the inside, classroom 225 had many classes in there. The football team had their meetings in there, and some of these classrooms have been dedicated and named in tribute to some of the professors. We have stained glass in the chapel, and that's the only place now. This is the library on the left-hand side of Donnelly, where the stained glass was. It's great to see that at night. And that has been converted into a computer lab. Now you see where on the right-hand side, the veranda has been enclosed with the glass and steel. And on the left is where the stained glass was, where the library was. And that was the original facade. I can remember my father driving me into the main entrance to Marist back in the day. And there's a then and now shot of the Kieran Gatehouse. And ironically, lots of different kinds of communications took place on this site. At the top, you got the clam bakes at the pool. And in the lower spot, Baba would be proud of the Lowell Thomas Center. There you go. That's another shot of Marion Hall, but check out the cars again. That's a big deal. And now you can see how things have progressed and have been converted. Marion is now freshman residence. This shot is from Donnelly looking across campus, which was at that time nothing more than a parking lot, but also Dr. Fisher had her art exhibit area there, which now has been converted to the quad look. And the stone carvings, this used to be right in the courtyard, which has now been transferred into or converted into a dining hall. There's the football field, a real field with real grass. We had to do the sod job on that back in the day when we weren't collecting rocks. But Dr. Leonidoff did a nice job for us there. The dorm room, the dormitories, Sheehan is 3 stories, Leo is 6, Champagne is 9, nice round numbers. I don't know if that's significant or symbolic, but that's what they did back in the day. And on the backside of Champagne and the campus center is where you could get great views of the river from there in the west. And the Big M on the monolithic rock was intimidating to opposing oarsmen. I won't tell you how the M got there, by the way, but the railroad trestle was a popular training facility. You can see that in the lower left for the crew team, the track team. It was 3 stories high. The wrestling team spent a lot of time there on their way back and forth to the boathouse for practice. And probably a lot of other teams thought that it was a good way to do their plyometrics. Academics. We had a lot of professors who did a lot of stuff for us, and they had an extended tenure. You'll see the heritage faculty on these pages, and we'll start with Linus. The picture on the right reminds me of other professors who had those elbow patches on their corduroy jackets. Okay, that was the style back in the day, just so that you remember.
and Tony Campielli, who's beloved by all and worked alongside Presidents Foy and Murray for 4 decades and contributed significantly to the college's growth during that time. Roscoe Balsh.
Charlemagne.
Brother Belanger.
He ran the 3rd year abroad program along with language, but he used to interview people for that program, and people were terrified of him because not everybody got into it.
Italo Benin.
Why do I exist?
Our brilliant biology professor, Joe Betancourt, who just retired recently after 50 years at Marist, and the beloved Mo Bobo, language professor, and just really encouraged his students to travel abroad.
And was also one of the directors of the Student Brothers community.
And Kevin Carolyn, gifted math professor. Tom Casey taught philosophy, and his wife Irma still teaches at Marist today. And we have Jerry Cox.
I'll say more about him later.
Okay. Ed Donahue, philosophy.
God.
And Bill Idle, psychology.
Teaching neuropsych along with experimental psych. There are only 3 in the department, he, Dan Kirk, and Ed O'Keefe.
And next, Evelyn Fisher, all about art.
And you can still see some of her mosaics in Donley. They've been there for more than 50 years.
Doc Goldman, teacher, coach, mentor. John Griffin, who taught economics. George Hooper.
Drosophila melanogasters are fruit flies.
And Jack Kelly, who helped build the business program, and just, again, another beloved professor.
And taught economics to most of the freshmen going through. His course was kind of a required course. Wonderful teacher.
Dan Kirk, psychology.
Awesome, awesome.
Carolyn Landau, political science. Jeff Lanning taught theater, communications, and really helped to build the study abroad program at Marist.
And he was also finishing his doctorate on Booker T. Washington when he was here.
And the phenomenal Richard LaPietra, chemistry.
His organic chemistry course was a make it or break it for medical students, or pre-med students, I should say.
And Bob Lewis, English.
His contemporary American novel was a life-changing course for many people. He opened up all sorts of worlds through literature.
And our chemistry professors, again, Larry Menapace, Andy Malloy, Gus Nolan, who taught freshman writing and communications, Kaz Norgalunas, who taught Russian and German and Russian literature, and Bob Norman taught communications and established the Marist Communications Internship Program that has grown by leaps and bounds over the years.
Baba was very famous and very popular.
Yes, he was. Ed O'Keefe, psychology. Peter O'Keefe, history. Bill Olson, history and Latin American studies. Ted Prenting, business, and worked with Jack Kelly to build the business program back in the day. And Brother Richard Rancourt taught philosophy and mathematics.
And also dabbled in the music department. It was just getting started at that time.
He was a gifted pianist. And here we have John Richdorf, who's celebrating his 50th year at Marist this year. And John came to Marist with the class of '69 from Archbishop Malloy High School and graduated early in '68 as class valedictorian. And we're just really so fortunate to have John here with us at Marist. And Brother Cornelius Russell, accounting. John Schroeder, known as Doc Schroeder, who headed up the evening division program. Dr. George Summer for English.
Linguistics and Shakespeare too.
And Larry Sullivan, who taught, I think, one of the most popular courses at Marist, known as Marriage and the Family, and kept in touch with hundreds of alumni over the years. Dr. Milton Teichman, English, and his passion truly was art as well as English. and Dr. Vincent Toscano, history. Jerry White, the Renaissance man who would regularly have students over to his home for fine food and opera and cheering on the New York Giants. And I'm delighted to share that Sean carries on those fine traditions established by Marist faculty years ago.
It's a very easy tradition to follow. Students like to eat, I like to cook. So it's a good match.
That's great. And wrapping up the Heritage Faculty section is Dr. Lou Zuccarello, Professor of Political Science.
There were some guiding forces here, how we label this. Helen O'Connor was my elementary school nurse. Her husband, Vinny, was the principal of Ellsworth School at the time. Tom Wade probably had about a half a dozen different hats in advancement, development, admissions, here, there, and everywhere. He recently passed. And Stan Hollis was known in Poughkeepsie as the upward bound person because of the programs that he ran. And Joan, you can tell us about the guys on the bookends here.
Sure. So Fred Lambert, as you will all recall, was housemaster of Champagne Hall, and he also taught here at the college. And in 1981, he and Julie Rigothi Lambert moved to Wheeling, West Virginia, where they still are. And I had the great pleasure of meeting with them last summer. But Fred and Julie have always remained very involved in the life of the college. And Joe Brosnan as well. Joe went on to become president of two colleges, Belmont Abbey in North Carolina, alma mater of Jerry White, and then also Delaware Valley College, which became Delaware Valley University under his leadership. So he's looking forward to seeing everyone and reconnecting with the class of 70 as well.
This just to give you another idea to some of the marriage traditions. This is when Mrs. O'Brien was retiring. She was recognized for all her behind the scenes activities. Dave Flynn was involved with admissions and advancement, and everybody knows Danny Kirk. I want to take a second to talk about Jerry Cox. He always hammered us with write it down and date it. And the cartoon says it all. No matter what he did, he always gave 110%. I had two of his three kids in class at Ketchum High School, and two of them work for Marist today. Bob Lewis was, I remember when he first came to Marist, he was writing articles for The Circle. He taught lit, coached track, and I still see him in Adams occasionally.
And they were really not that much older than all of you
Right.
when they were here teaching in the classroom. So,
Right.
yeah.
I got a good vocabulary lesson when some of these things happen. Everything starts with letter C. There was the convocation, which was a coming together. There was a compendium, which was the 32-page booklet with all of the stuff about Marist. And then the talk about the future of Marist and co-eds. So you got convocation, compendiums, and co-eds. This ring represents $12,000 of total cost for 4 years of tuition
and 3 years of room and board. And today's tuition is $42,000, and room and board brings it up to $62,000.
Joan, handle this one.
Yeah, we just thought it would be interesting for viewers to see where and how we've, carried on the legacies of really the founders of the modern Marist College. And so we have so many spaces throughout the campus dedicated to these fine professors, and we have scholarships in their name as well that support Marist students. So, you know, when our alumni come back, we invite you to stroll around and, you know, and see how their legacy is being carried forward. And, you know, I know, and you know, I became very close with many of the faculty here, and they would all be so proud of the commitment to excellence in teaching carried on by today's Marist faculty. Very proud indeed.
Sports and athletics, near and dear to my heart. This one will hold for a second. Theology professor Jerry Remenicki was the sailing coach. John Kren, that's with one N, was on the team, and after he graduated, he coached the team, and then later went on to become a U.S. Navy commander for 22 years. So it shows how what goes around comes around kind of thing. And then we got the other stuff dealing with the water, the crew team. We put this picture in from the yearbook so that we could get the names in there, so you can take an up close look at all of that. And this is at the Dad Vale. From now on, start looking at all the headlines and read all the headlines. At the Dad Vale in Philadelphia, we placed third the first year out, and we put Marist on the rowing map. Here again, the headlines, unblemished. This was down in Philadelphia. And the Circle did a lot of features of a lot of guys in a lot of sports. This is what the perspective looked like. You'll end up seeing the pictures and the guys' names so that we can get rid of all the text, so we can have enough room to highlight and recognize a lot of other people. There I am. The football club got uniforms from a high school out west that had to drop the football program. This is our picture senior year, a freshman year, and they were the Vikings, and we had to do that because we were still club at the time. Now this was our senior year picture, and it's a pretty good bunch there. We worked our way to trying to be number one. These are some of the people who tried to do all that, and there was a montage there. Working our way to number one, some of the guys who were instrumental in causing that to happen. Doc Goldman is in front of a helicopter to show this is the resourcefulness of the Marist mind. They brought in a helicopter to try to dry the football field, because if you remember back in the day, we've always had a lot of problems with the football field. Picture on the right shows everybody there was involved with the Marist Club football program, and the junior in the picture ended up being the person in the next for the next year. Ronnie had an amazing football mind. He taught me a lot as a player, as a coach, and as a person. We had cheerleaders in either 68 or 69. And Joan, tell us more about the fact that they didn't just handle pom-poms.
This was just an incredible group of women, and who really made their mark on Marist as being among the first women to be traditional resident students at the college. And they went on to become corporate executives, educators, major philanthropists, and as I say, just a really great legacy.
Yeah, this is back in the day when the season's tickets only cost $5. Notice that all those fans are not doing any social distancing, but number 83 in the front middle there is the only one with a mask on. That's the basketball team. Ron Petro, the coach, on the left, and Barry Lacombe from class of 70 on the right was the manager.
And Ron Petro brought us to the Division I level at Marist back
Yeah.
in the early 1980s.
Soccer team, Doc Goldman on the left, brought soccer to Division I level. And in the next slide, you'll see Isidore Sabeda, who's also a brother. He brought the international style of soccer to the game. And Bobby Kren with 2 ends, well, he's tough. He was the goalie for the soccer team, and he also wrestled. Claude Guinness, 4 days of running, 100-hour relay, set a world record. And they're going to be recognized next year. And you can just look at the number of miles that these guys ran in the course of 4 days.
Yeah, Bill, this was really incredible. And this whole effort was the mastermind of Charles DeSoger from the class of 68. And when he came to Marist, he was told there would be a track team. And by his junior year, we still didn't have one. So he took matters into his own hands and together with John Forbes and John Gogol and Ed Walzer and Art Quickington and Phil Capio and many others, really developed this whole plan to have a 100-hour marathon relay to raise money and awareness. And in fact, they got great coverage. Cousin Brucey from WABC Radio in New York City gave them a shout out, and Howard Cosell also mentioned their efforts. So really, really important. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but 3 of the 5 days it snowed. So you talk about intrepid runners, right? They really persevered and made it all happen.
Yeah, I got that on the next the slide after this one, but here are the guys with their names and the recognition. Again, read the headlines. 20 and 5, that says it all. And in order to get the room on there, notice that Ray Schmidt is not running and jumping on our home track, by the way. But that picture in the upper right-hand corner shows the conditions that they were running in when they did that 100-hour marathon.
And the real great athletic gear, right, that everybody wore.
There's the headlines again, best ever. John Forbes in this picture is training for the Boston Marathon. And Phil Capio recently passed, but he was in our class and did a lot for the cross-country program and the track program here, even to this, to this day. Alphabetically, wrestling is last. This is the picture of the team freshman year. And there it is, wrestling team best in 6 years. And Billy McGarr did a lot. And we follow the attitude of Carl DeCesar, who was ahead of us in the class, but he kept us on track. Student life is probably what you all been waiting for. We always got to save the best for last. Jim McGlumphy took these shots, and noticed the cars back then were big enough to stuff all your stuff and bring it to school in one trip. But that was the campus back then. Here are a few hall monitors and how to have improper use of college furniture back in the day. And here are pictures of photomagenic classmates. I'm not going to read all the names. We'll just scroll through these. You can go back. These were from the yearbook in our freshman year. And
all donning proper attire.
Oh, coat and tie, collared shirt. That was it. And we didn't get them all in there, but this is just a cross section. Cameras weren't as important a thing as they were on your phone nowadays. So that was part of the reason for all that. And we had trailblazers. Donnelly had glass walls, but not glass ceilings. All right. These are some of the people who were part of our class and in a great number. Did you want to say anything about them now, or is that later?
Well, I just to comment that, again, going back 50 years, it was really remarkable that, these women were working full time. They were often raising families, and they were going to school, and their education was really important to them. They were very, very motivated. And so they were a very special group of women who really, set the bar for Marist back in the day.
A new chapter began at Marist in 1969 when the college welcomed 50 women as resident students. Who's who in American colleges and universities? There were 23 of us. You can read the resumes in the book. Here we have the three amigos, then, now, and always. Brian, Joe, and Frank have been together. And Donnelly Steps were always seemed to be a good place to meet. Over on the right is Kevin Gormley on the top, and bottom guy is Lee Kelmer.
There were dress codes. There were other things like mandatory study, tacit approval, responsible attendance. You remember back to the slide that Sean showed of everybody in Marion Hall, all the brothers lined up in order there. Lay students were a little bit different, but we were still in coat and tie at the time, and how that all changed on the right with a little bit more casual attire. I think that this was a prime real estate for probably a parents' weekend or something, because that's pretty neat and clean right there.
That's super organized right there.
Yep, those are few and far between. Motorcycle in the men's room is my caption for this picture, but how it got there is a long story, and nobody seems to know. But the fact that it is a historic development, and they had one, and there you go. The Rat, gathering place for everybody. In the lower right, you'll see there were brothers who'd be there. The second row, there were women. We had people who would serve, and there you go. You'll see the dining hall now.
These were some of the character building things that we did back in the day. And the foreshadowing element here, Mike Towers was our senior class president.
Hootenannies, this was my first date with my future wife, Joanne. We went to Dairy Queen afterwards, and that was memorable to me. Jay and the Americans came on campus and had a concert. The pool was cool. Check out the beer truck. I don't know if Rheingold is still around, because I haven't had a beer in 50 years, but that's another story. This picture isn't, this is a little fuzzier, but it's Timothy Leary, so you can understand that. He came the month before Jay and the Americans came, so you get some idea as to some of the speakers who have been on campus. Followed by Tom Wolfe, Fulton Lewis, and Cyprian Rowe, or who was a brother also. And the next slide shows Dr. Margaret Mead, who was an anthropologist. She had written books, and this is the transition for Joe DeTura, made a name for himself. He was our class of 70 person involved with the Theater Guild, and they put on some spectacular shows and historic kinds of things. Look Homeward Angel. You all heard of that? You all heard of The Wizard of Oz? Okay. You all heard of Art Quickington? And look at all the people, management, handling all that stuff, organization, all of the stuff that goes into that, the complex planning.
Right. Let's just go back. Let's go back for a moment, though. These costumes are just incredible. I mean, truly, let's look, Vince Begley as the Tin Man, Kevin McArdle
Yep.
As the Scarecrow, freshman Matt Grady played the Lion, and then Art as the captain of the guard. And again, just phenomenal. Really great. And they took this on the road. So if we roll forward, the cast actually traveled after the academic year came to a close. Kevin McArdle shared that the cast traveled to Kentucky to perform for elementary school children in Appalachia. And it was really a memorable trip for a number of reasons, not the least of which was they traveled by school bus all the way to Kentucky. So, just really great tribute to the cast and lifelong friendships. I know with, my time at Marist too, theater was always so important, and as it is today. Many of our students minor in theater.
In the middle on the top is Paul Tesoro in our class. He was a spokesman for Central Hudson for a number of years. And that's not too shabby either. The evening division had the first female grad was in '68. They ended up, their brother Brian Desolitz on the left. They ended up having their own dinners, and men and women, quite a few women were day hops then as they transitioned to being on campus. We already talked about that. And there's the kind of stuff that we did. Tom Wade on the left, and at the other end, Dr. Schroeder. Everybody can say the word Franks. Can you spell that, boys and girls? No shout outs or storytelling on that one. We'll be here all night. Frivolous Al's 1 and 2. Brown Derby, still there, same name. The Lemon Ice, that's at Cafe Aurora, put Sabino Stripoli through Marist. And the Bardavon is one of the iconic landmarks of Poughkeepsie. And we all remember the next chapter, some of the Marist alumni. You can all find yourself in this picture, I hope. Commencement was supposed to be the beginning, not the end. And that has gone on for quite a while. 50 years to be exact. The reunions are fun. Here's a bunch of the guys who came back for the 40th in 2010. And here's an inside shot. We did outside and inside of all of that with everybody. I think the other ones were with all the golfers.
Right, and early polling shows that, we may have as many as 3 times as many alumni from the class back for the 50th, which would be awesome. So we just wanted to share with you a couple of things that will be happening when we do come together to celebrate your 50th, and that is the tribute to the track team. When Charles DeSogra and John Forbes came back for their 50th, they got to talking about really what an accomplishment it was to establish the track team back in the day, and that we need to recognize that. And so they led an effort, and we put a planning team together to work on dedicating a space and supporting Marist track students into the future. So part of that planning team includes Charles DeSogra, of course, John Forbes, Mariah Capio, who is the daughter of Phil Capio, Just really great to have her on board, and just we have a great team with Ed Walzer, Art Quickington, John Gogol, Joe Olivet, who was a brother at the time and was the team manager. And then, of course, Coach Bob Lewis, who has always stayed involved with the college. So looking forward to that celebration. And here are some more familiar faces. Legendary crew coach Bill Austin, who's also just a Marist ambassador extraordinaire. Les Lombardi from the class of '68, who teaches in our sports communication program. And former Marist athletic director and basketball coach Ron Petro, who traveled from Oregon for his induction into the MAC Hall of Fame in 2017. That recognized his many accomplishments for Marist basketball and athletics. And Tim Murray, the current Marist Director of Athletics, completes this foursome. And under Tim's leadership, our Red Foxes have won a conference record 12 Commissioners' Cups and has led the MAC in selections to the conference's academic honor roll for 19 consecutive years. And Bill Zabicki. Bill Zabicki, loomed large, I know, for your class and certainly with the crew program. And he's been heading up an effort with Mike Ortega for the crew program and to raise support for students. He comes back almost every year to the college. This shot was taken actually in 2018 when he came and spent a couple of days on campus, and he met with our ROTC unit. ROTC was established here at Marist back in 1982. And then here, right, Bill, and Sean, I mean, we are just so fortunate to have so many of our retired faculty and current administrators involved in the life of the college. And so they all wanted to share their congratulations with the class of '70 and looking forward to being in touch throughout this coming year and for your reunion. Again, we have Tony Campili and Joe Brosnan, the Lewises and the Lamberts.
Joan, I just wanted to say as we're coming near the end, if anyone's hesitant about coming to the reunion because you feel, gee, will I know anyone? I would put those concerns aside. When we were calling folks to make the initial contact, I had conversations with people I hadn't talked to since we were students here, and yet we'd be on the phone for 2 hours. Once you come, you're always happy that you did. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I would encourage anyone who's hesitant about coming to think twice about it. I think you'd find it would be a great weekend and a wonderful way to catch up really over the course of a lifetime.
Absolutely. And Sean, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. And just in working with the last few classes on their 50th, to a person, those who were a little skeptical, weren't sure, oh, I may not know anyone, should I come? They have all said they are just so happy that they made the effort to come back, and just what a special, real special opportunity it was, and to see everyone again. So I totally agree.
And going back to the slides from way back in the beginning, when the Lavelle Hall was dedicated to the Lavelle family for their outstanding leadership and generosity, the inscription on the plaque reads, "To all the students who walk these halls, your lives will be enriched by those you meet here. Cherish the friendships made. They will be lifelong." That was said by Pat Lavelle in 1973. And last but not least, last on the list, but first in our hearts, Ron Zurwick, and like Ed Zukowski, they're always if alphabetically, the last ones, but they're the first ones that we think of a lot of times when we think of Marist. What better way to end this with, that's a Marist man right there. Do the commercial, Joan.
So thank you. Thank you, Bill, Sean, Amy, Amanda, everyone who's been involved in pulling this together. We cannot thank you enough for joining us. As we say, this will be available, so you can come back and revisit this slideshow and take time going through. Also, we had many articles here from the Marist Circle. If you just Google Marist Circle Archives, you will have access to all of the digitized editions of the Marist Circle. So many of our alums are enjoying reviewing those now. So we thank you very much. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to share either here as part of this program or afterwards. You can email us, you can give us a call, and certainly feel free to reach out to Team 70 as well as we continue through this celebratory year. So thank you all very much.